creating alternative scenarios with RiskSimTable. It would be nice to have a comparison between the three possible scenarios. One status quo scenario where Joe keeps two full-time employees, his cousins, on payroll, and keeps his potential monthly demand as it is within an average of 8 contracts per month. A second scenario keeping just one full-time employee, reducing his monthly contracting capacity and also reducing his fixed expense. This would imply keeping just one full-time employee. Finally, a third scenario where he hires a third full-time employee, expands average monthly capacity to 10 contracts per month, and commits himself to a more rigid payroll structure, but somehow cheaper than hiring variable manpower. Observe that these scenarios have been laid out on range E1, G4. This comparison can be performed on at-risk with the SimTable function. The RiskSimTable function specifies a list of values that will be used sequentially in individual simulations executed during a run of simulations. The number of simulations should be set to n at the at-risk ribbon. Then, simulation 1 will use the first argument's value from each RiskSimTable function in the model. Simulation 2 will use the second argument's value, and so on. 82. Therefore, in this case, we should use the following function. On cell B2 for the average monthly contracts on non-winter months, write the following formula. Equals RiskSimTable, open parenthesis, G2 to G4, close parenthesis. What this syntax means is that RiskSimTable is a function that only allows for one argument, but this argument can assume three different alternative values placed on range G2, G4, either an 8, a 7, or a 10, depending on each one of the three scenarios yet to be simulated and analyzed. 83. Also, on cell B6, for the number of fixed employees for each one of the three alternative scenarios, write the following function. Equals RiskSimTable, open parenthesis, F2 to F4, close parenthesis. 84. Also, on the at-risk bar, the number of simulations should be set to 3. The number of simulations should match the number of arguments in the RiskSimTable functions present in the model. If there are more arguments than simulations, the extra arguments will be ignored. If there are fewer arguments than simulations, at-risk will report errors for the extra simulations. You can also set this parameter on simulation settings. 85. Click on Simulation Settings button and change the number of simulations to 3 on the first tab of Settings. A Simulation Names box appears on the right side. Click on it and the following box appears. 86. Click on the Copy from Range button to select the range with names E2 to E4. 87. Click OK and exit to the previous window, which should now look like this. These texts will eventually be used as subtitles for each one of the three simulated scenarios. 89. Click OK twice on the respective window to exit and proceed to run again another simulation with the Start Simulation icon. Just make sure your demo mode is off in order to run a faster simulation and guarantee the usage of multiple processors. In this case, the simulation will run 15,000 iterations. It will run a first simulation with 8 monthly non-winter contracts as average, cell B2, and 2 fixed employees, cell B6. These are respectively the 2 first elements on each one of the 2 parallel RiskSimTable functions. Once the first simulation has been executed, at-risk will replace RiskSimTable for its second argument, a 6 for average monthly non-winter contracts, and 1 full-time employee. This second scenario has been named Fire Cousin. Finally, at-risk will run a third simulation with 5,000 additional iterations under a 10 for average monthly non-winter contracts and 3 full-time employees. This is the third and last scenario called Higher FTE. 90. Once the simulation has finished, Click on the Browse Results icon, having previously placed your cursor on top of the output cell and 24, total profit. Notice that there's a subtitle with the label of the first scenario being run, 1 status quo. A small button in the graph bar underneath allows you to view other scenarios being generated. It is the Select Simulation Number to Display button. 91. Select the second option, Fire Casting, and observe how the chart changes. 92. Change it once again to show the third option for Higher FTE. The most interesting feature here is to change this option to Show All Simulations. By clicking on this option, the chart will overlay the 3 simulated curves at once. 2 minor graphing details could be changed to make the chart more understandable. 93. Grabbing the wall of the statistics table with your cursor, grab the left wall of the statistics table in order to make room for the 3 simulated columns. At this point, the chart should look like this.